Hi, and welcome to the Harmonious Family Life series. My name is Ulrika Bilby, and my mission is to inspire and give families tools how to thrive instead of survive. And today, I'm very excited to say welcome to Theresa, Alexandra, Inman. I will be speaking to you today. And why don't you just introduce yourself a little bit before we start, who you are and what you do.
Okay, awesome. Good morning, Ulrika. Thank you so much for inviting me. It's such an honor to be here with you. My name is Theresa Alexandra Inman. I am a board-certified behavior analyst. So I work with children and families who have been impacted by autism. I do work with other families, but that's my main practice. And my mission is to improve the world one family at a time by providing them with strategies to prevent problem behaviors, so that way they have a harmonious life.
Yeah, oh, that is so beautiful. And we actually had a conversation yesterday, and we were talking about meltdowns and how that could be difficult to sometimes, as a parents, also feel calm in the situations like that. When your child is in distress, you feel in distress, and that could cause them that, instead of solving the situation, it becomes chaos. So then we thought that maybe we talk today about how to keep that calm in the household. And you had an ABC that you wanted to share today.
Yes, I do. So the ABCs of meltdowns, what we want to start with though are antecedent manipulation. So that's what the A is for. And antecedents are anything that happened before the behavior. So, mom said, go clean your room, and then there's a problem. So in order to prevent that, we want to teach children, because first of all, I want to say all behavior is communication, right? We're trying to communicate something. Either we don't want to do it, or, just can we do it later, whatever it is. So beforehand, a lot of times with children, especially the younger ones with who are on the spectrum, maybe if we use as an antecedent manipulation some kind of picture system or a schedule, right? Children, I find a lot of them love schedules. When I work with families, the little ones like, can I have a schedule, please? Because again, I only put things in place when it's necessary, because then we have to end up fading those things. So it doesn't make sense to add something into the environment that you're going to later fade unless it's necessary. So we can start with a schedule. So if it's room cleanup, then okay, remember on Tuesdays we clean up the room, and set the schedule with the child, right? So we're going to clean up room on Tuesdays. What time would you like to do that, right? Give them choices, because choices are so important in preventing meltdowns. So, give them a choice. Well, would you like to clean up your room at 9 o'clock or at 9:30, right? And then they feel empowered. If it's a choice, if it's something, just whatever it is, just always try to involve the child in what the treatment should be, if they're old enough, right? Of course, everything has to be developmentally appropriate. So if possible, start with a kind of schedule or a warning to say, okay, we're going to do this, or remember in 10 minutes, it's time to leave, or, just whatever it is. Always try to prepare them. Is what we tend to forget. Children's executive functioning is not developed. I mean, I've read where executive functioning is not fully developed until we're 25. So imagine the babies, and of course they're dealing with other issues, and just the fact we have difficulties sometimes, and we've been on this earth longer than they have. So we just want to prepare them. So, just give them a tool to help prepare them to prevent that meltdown. So like I said, whether it be choices, a picture schedule, a written schedule, just something ahead of time, and involve them in that so they feel empowered. And I mean, even 2-year-olds, they can do it. They're talking, like, do you want to do this or that? Oh, mommy, I'll do this first. Or, they can point to it, right? That's communication, right? And that's the other tip, to giving them a way to communicate. So if your child is not vocal, maybe they can point to something. They can show, give you a picture. Maybe they can say a sound, right? Because some children, even though they can't say words, they say sounds, which reminds me of when I was studying to be a behavior analyst. One of my mentors, she said, this child, he was not vocal, but he liked having his knees tickled, and they named them num-num-nums. So he just said num-num-nums, and that meant I want my knees tickled, right? It could be just anything, right? Just give them a word, a sound, a way to communicate that will relieve the frustration for them and then prevent you from getting frustrated.
So that's a great start.
Yes. And, we have to start at A, right? So, and then the other part, so the B of this is the behavior, right? And honestly, slow me down and don't, you can please stop me if you have any questions as I ramble on. So the B is behavior. So that is, the meltdown. During a meltdown, the best thing you can do is to remain calm. Take a deep breath, avert your gaze, do just something, because standing there looking at a child who has a meltdown creates more anxiety, and then it might intensify the situation. So the best thing to do is just sort of, just make sure they're safe. If you can leave the room and you know that they're going to be safe, you're absolutely certain that they'll be safe if you're not in there, then do so, right? Then they'll calm themselves a lot faster. I found that to be very effective. I also work in the school district, and I find that as well. When a child's having a meltdown, if you can just have them in a room that's safe with nothing in it, then they can just, they calm themselves down. If you're in that room, it tends to build that, and it takes a lot longer for them to calm.
Because you are coming also with the energy of being a bit anxious and frustrated as yourself. I find though that I think as a mother myself, and I can recognize these situations, it is that maybe you feel like I'm abandoning my child if I leave my child when they're in distress.
Right.
Speak a little bit into that then, because what you're saying then is that actually it could be better in some situation, and the child will quiet down much faster.
Exactly. In that instance, you are helping your child. And I know there's so much with this, and I hear it from parents all the time, because sometimes I'll tell them, ignore something. It's like, but how can I ignore them? They're in distress. They're honestly, a lot of times they're not in distress, right? They are just trying to communicate. And this is the most effective way that they've learned to communicate, right? Because I'll ask you for something and you'll be like, oh, you're busy, you're finding, you're doing something. So we'll do it later, da, 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 da. And then as soon as they escalate, then you give them what they want. So they've learned, right? We teach children how to behave. They've learned from, patterns in their life that this is the most effective way to communicate. So they'll go to that instead of, using other methods. So it's just really important that we understand that you're helping, right? Because sometimes parents say, well, if I give them a hug, but if that's the time that you give them hugs the most, then that's what they're going to do most often to get that hug, right? So it's really important that we not just the behaviors you want to see most of are the ones that you give the hugs most for, are the ones that you're always smiling about, the ones that you're always giving attention for, right? The ones that you don't want to see. You want to be even keel, just monotone, don't make any eye contact or little eye contact, because you can still look at somebody without making direct eye contact, right? Because we also want to remember that eye contact is attention. Right? So, and if they're doing it for attention and we're giving them that hard stare, then we're giving, and I'll just give you an example. I worked with a family, and dad is he's an NFL player. So he's a big guy, and their son's 3 years old. And so we were in a room, and he asked the son to do something. And he just, the little boy was, running around playing and just thought it was funny. And I said, well, can I help? He said, no, all I have to do is look at him and he will do what I asked him to do. So I said, okay. So I allowed that to go on for about 5 minutes. And I said, it's not helping, because that's really attention. So, it's like, you're paying me. Can we do it my way? Let me just show you. So I said, let's leave the room. We were not halfway down the hallway before the little boy said, I did it. and then we went back in. So, it can be very effective. I mean, and leaving the room was not unsafe because they had cameras in that room, so we could see what was happening, so again, we're not that far away. If something happens, we can, be right there. Honestly, you're not with your child, in front of your child 24/7. Right?
Mm-hmm.
A lot of times they're in their rooms, they're doing something else. So, and we don't feel guilty then. However, we feel guilty when they're having a meltdown and we leave them, right?
So you think that the stress could often be in us and that we give it to the child?
Absolutely, because children can sense how we feel, right? If you're nervous about something, you teach your child to be nervous under those circumstances because like, oh, this is how mommy reacts. And you'll see children, they mirror their parents, right? They mirror the caregivers, they mirror the people who are with them the most, right? Facial expressions, everything. So you're stressed, they're going to sense that stress. And sometimes they behave in ways that they don't understand, not because of anything that in them, but because they're sensing your stress and they can see your facial expression. So I tell parents, it's okay for you to take a time out, take a breather, walk away, and then you can come back, because we want to show our children how to function, how to in tough circumstances, right? So if we're calm, then we're modeling how they should behave under those circumstances. Right? So instead of yelling, and I mean, hey, listen, I was a yeller because I had to tell my kids, please remind mommy that only ignorant people yell. And that was my way of having them, that, working on that. And they would look at me like, mommy, and I was like, oh, I'm so sorry, and we also have to be humble, right? Because we make mistakes. And if children see us making mistakes and apologizing for those mistakes, that goes a long way.
So give ourselves some grace, give ourselves some time out, and then go back in when we're calm again, if it's safe for the child. So what if the child is harming themselves?
Then we want to block that. We want to make sure, and that is, safety is key, right? We, as behavior analysts, we intervene when behaviors are dangerous, disruptive, disgusting, developmentally inappropriate, and destructive. So we don't self-harm is huge. So we don't want that. So we will block it. So what I will do, like and what I teach parents to do, if they're harming themselves, just neutrally block. Don't hold them, because then we're restraining them and preventing them, and we'll get them even more upset. But if they're trying to hit themselves, I just put my hand here. And if they move it, I just do this, just move my hand so they're not harming themselves. And I'm not even, my face is calm and I make no eye contact, right? I just keep them in my peripheral and I just move my hands to block so that they don't do it.
So you're very neutral in a situation like that. I think that's probably an aha moment for a lot of people. Because I think that you're so involved with your child, and especially if it is your child, you're not a professional, it's your child and they're in distress or you're frustrated, that you go in and you're very interactive with your child. But the way that you speak now is that you're supposed to be neutral. And I'm going, wow, yes. And if we are allowing ourselves to get neutral, that could be a game changer.
Absolutely, because then the child will become neutral. Especially if they're used to seeing us react, like having these big reactions to their reactions, then they wonder like, wait, what's going on, right? So we're modeling that. Now, there's a caveat. Behaviors tend to get worse before they get better when we change something in the environment. So if you're used to saying, baby, stop that, or don't do this, or whatever it is, however you're used to reacting, and you all of a sudden stop reacting, then they're like, wait, maybe I need to intensify this, because she used to react, maybe after 5 minutes of this tantrum, and now it's been 10 minutes and she's not reacting. So they may go 20 minutes if they've never done this before, but it will eventually stop. And I love to tell stories. So if you don't mind indulging me with another story.
Examples are great.
So I worked with a family, and this young man was 10. And you know, one day I went in there, you know, mom placed a demand, because I always tell parents, I am artificial to your environment. So I am just going to be here to guide you and to tell you, so that way when I leave, you're empowered. Because if I do everything, you know, then when I leave, your power is gone, because I've usurped all of your power. Yeah. So I come in and, you know, always initially I come in as the fun girl with boundaries, you know, so it's like, you know, we play and then they try to go past the boundary. Okay, this, we're doing this right now. So, and parents can start that, right? It's not too late. So don't think that it's too late to do that if you haven't in the past, right? Life is a process. And I just want to say to you parents, you don't know what you don't know. So again, give yourself some grace. I love that. I have to steal that from Ulrika. She's always saying it, and I love it. And so I walked into the home, and, you know, after we had our fun times, his mom placed a demand, and I think this was to go take a bath. And he said no, and had a meltdown. I mean, I had bumps on my head, scratches, you know, he attempted to bite me, you know, all of that. And in all of that, I can't react, because if I do, it would intensify it. So at about an hour and a half into the tantrum, mom came in, she's like, isn't that a long time? I said, well, you know, and we'd already spoken about baselines. So she sat, and I knew that hour and a half was the longest he's ever tantrumed. However, she had also told me the reason it stopped at an hour and a half, because she gave in at that time. So I said, well, so then it went 3 hours.
Wow.
Yes, with a 10-year-old who was almost my height, you know, almost my size, you know, and kicking and, you know, trying to bite and do all of that. And she said, well, what do I do? I said, just wait, you know. So I stayed there to block and make sure that he wasn't, you know, doing anything, because when he engaged in tantrums, he would throw things and break things, and, you know, it was a mess. So I just made sure we were in a hallway where there was nothing, and I just stood there and blocked him. And so after the 3 hours, I mean, Lord knows I was exhausted. However, it was so worth it, because he never tantrumed for that long again. The next tantrum was literally 20 minutes. And within a couple of weeks, it went to, oh, and I thought, thank you, God, you know, because we had passed that, you know. And then, you know, but in the meantime, we were teaching him to express himself, right? Because he was very echolalic. I would say something, you know, I'd walk in and I'll call him Tommy. I'd say, hi, Tommy. And he'd say, hi, Tommy. So within a couple of weeks, I had him say, you know, I walk in, I'd say, hi, Tommy, say, hi, Miss Theresa. And I'd say, how are you? And they'd say, I'm fine. So we got to that point, and then now he was able to, you know, articulate what he wanted. So we'd say something. So the same things that provoked the tantrum, that evoked the tantrum in the beginning, were no longer effective. You know, it no longer evoked a tantrum, because then he could ask, can I do that later? Or can I do this first? Or, you know, it was a beautiful thing. So it's just really important to, you know, remain calm, and because the more we react, the more it intensifies the situation.
Oh, wow. Well, that was a good story to hear, because I think a lot of us would not last 3 hours. And what you were actually giving him was giving him space and also tools. So he probably felt safe in the end, instead of, you know, because you showed him that it's okay. He was all okay. So thanks for sharing that, because I think that we all give up way too, because it's a bit scary as well. And, you know, it's hard to see a child in distress.
Absolutely. No, it is. No, I hear you. And but the funny thing about him too, he would scream like I was killing him. You know, it's like, and then he'd say, Grandma, help me. You know, like, and then he'd go back to screaming, and the grandma was like, oh my goodness, you know, because, you know, usually, again, this is her baby, right? So grandma actually lived next door, so she spent a lot of time with him. So, and he lived with his mom, but it was just really interesting that he would do that. So then, because I allowed a lot of things to happen so they could see, because a lot of times we prevent children from showing us the awesomeness that is in them. And I always say my job is to get them out of their own way so we can see the awesomeness that is in them.
Love that. So good. Well, that was a lot in the B.
Yes. So
and
now
we could talk much more about that, but for the purpose of this now call, what about the C? What is
C? The C stands for consequence, right? So a consequence is anything we do after a behavior. So the consequences, when he was having a tantrum, I did nothing. I remained calm and I blocked him, right? That was the consequence, right? So, and that decreased the behavior. So consequences can be used to either increase the behavior or decrease the behavior, right? And in behavior analysis, we call that reinforcing when it increases it. And then when it decreases it, we call it punishment. So punishment is not something that you physically do, you understand? It's just whatever decreases the behavior. So if you find that your child is engaging in a tantrum and you scold them, reprimand them, and the tantrums continue, you're actually reinforcing that tantrum. It is not going to reduce because they're likely doing it for attention. So the consequence of, reprimanding, yelling, whatever it is that you do, spanking, is reinforcing. And people are like, but that makes no sense. But I'll tell you, I worked with a 3-year-old who literally would ask his mom for spankings because that's when he felt he got the most attention. So, and it's funny because she spanked him with a pool noodle, right? So it's just really stopped, nothing but, but he would bring the noodle to her and ask her for a spanking. And she's like, but why is that? I said, because you paid more attention to him. I said, when you're spanking, you're one-on-one with him. He's got all of your attention. He's got your eye contact. He's got he's got you fully engaged, right? Otherwise, you're with his brother or your husband, or you're working, or a million other things. But the spanking is one-on-one, just you and me, mommy. That's our time together.
Oh, that's crazy. Well, here in Sweden, it's illegal to spank, so that is just crazy that that is something that can come up. But what I've heard is that negative attention is better than no attention. So I can see where that is coming from. So just the ABC then, that it's a lot there. And you said that you work with children with, on the spectrum or with additional needs, but I'm thinking also that this could be for all children, the ABCs. And also in all ages, and that could be quite interesting to hear that from you. So, because I have teenagers now, so will this be applied, up into teenage years as well?
It can be applied with your husband. It can be applied with anyone, right?
Yeah.
Because if you change your behavior, they will change their reaction.
So
right?
good.
Yeah. So it's just really important that we focus on the behaviors that we want to see and react bigger to behaviors that we want to see. Because what we tend to do is they do something, challenging or something that you'd rather them not do. And we're up here yelling and lots of words. And then they do something, it's like, great job, Tommy. So which one would you want? The one with the richer response, right? So we want to change that. So when they do something, wow, how amazing are you? You did it. Oh my goodness. Wow, look at that. And when they do something you don't want, you can just say, stop, or do nothing, walk away. Because the more you sit there, the more you attend to them, the more you look at them, they're going to keep doing it until you react.
Yeah. Oh, so good. Well, that was a good wrap up. Thank you so much. That was just really, really good. And maybe we have to do another series on each letter.
Absolutely. No, that would be exciting because I feel and the reason I wrapped it up the way that I did, because I want to leave people with something, a tool, because I hate to just give information and then not give a strategy that will help now,
It's so beautiful. Yeah. So thank you so much for being here. And I'm sure that you will come here again. So thank you so much. Any last words that you want us to leave with the audience? Other than,
sorry, go ahead. Other than I interrupted you.
No, other than just like the positivity that, what you just explained just now.
Yeah, and I just want to reiterate that in many cases, behaviors get, once you put a strategy, once you change something, behaviors do tend to get worse before they get better. Please know that that's normal. Go through the worst, otherwise it will never get better. You know, and remain calm, give them tools to express themselves so that you're not having these problems, or actually reducing the problems. And then the consequences will be wonderful.
Yeah, fantastic. And Theresa, I have to ask you, if anyone want to get in contact with you, where will they find you?
They can actually email me at Theresa. Email me Theresa at parenting hyphen, so Theresa with an H, Theresa at parenting hyphen bites, BYTES.com.
Excellent. So great. Well, thank you everyone for listening, and I'll be back with more information another time.
Perfect. Thank you, Ulrika.
Thank you.